yet. Hare Krishna, Hare Bol, everybody. Live for millions and billions of people to see us. Actually, the last time we did this, we didn't get one view. So welcome Bhagavad-gita study. Super happy to have everybody here. And we've been doing this Gita study for a couple of years in some form or another. And this is the new form for one of our days where we're going to do it on YouTube and do a live and then save it for later. And hopefully in time, it could develop into our Gita podcast for anybody that wants to come, listen later, ask questions, and study the Bhagavad-gita. Right? Any thoughts, Dharma?
I'm right behind you 100%.
Okay,
happy to be here.
Yay. Our bowl, everybody. So let's do our introductory verses. Let me open up this Chrome tab here. How's that? Can you guys see that? If I make this bigger, is that bigger there? Yeah. Okay. Somebody want to lead us in our introductory verses? So for any new person watching this, whenever we study Bhagavad Gita, we go to page 1 and we chant the introductory verses in respect to the Guru, to the previous acharyas, to Krishna, to the devotees. Dharma, you want to lead us? No? Okay, I will. Okay, here we go. Om Jnana Timirandasya Gyananjana Salakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Svayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Parakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Sabadutam Padijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakam Vitamscha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Brisabhanu Stute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Shri Gauda Bhakta Vrindam Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. How nice. I always love reading those verses. Okay, so I have picked a verse, though we don't have to study it if we don't wish, but I have been studying these 4 main verses of the Bhagavad Gita called the Chatursloki, and this last one. So the Chatursloki is Bhagavad Gita 10:8, 10:9, 10:10, and 10:11. It's the 4 main verses of the Bhagavad Gita. Like, if you could take 4 verses from the whole Bhagavad Gita, what are the 4 most important? And it's these 4. And so this verse, particularly 10:11, I thought was just really sweet. So I thought, why not? Okay. Any thoughts so far? Any comments?
What makes this for verses.
Yeah, these
So
are some of my.
Go ahead.
what were you saying, Dharma?
Oh no, I just was saying these are some of my favorite verses, and I think your question is going to be what makes them so special.
Yeah.
Is because they contain pretty much like the essence that, like, when you boil it down to all the stuff that Krishna's saying, like, what is the essence of what he's communicating, you know? And we can explain something in so many different ways to try to see it from different perspectives to have an understanding, but ultimately there's an essence that we're trying to get at. And so these verses, really embody that essence. And it just makes me think of Radha Swami and um, how important it is to always capture the essence and not get caught up in all the other stuff on the outside that can be confusing and difficult to digest and practice. It's like, even though it's hard, what is the essence of what I'm aiming for? And if I can just have that as a guiding compass, then I know I can move forward.
Yeah, super nice, super nice. Absolutely. What is the basic principles, and not getting lost in all sorts of details?
Yeah, exactly.
Question.
Okay, go ahead.
Thank you. In the translation, when it says to show them special mercy, what is it entailing when it is labeling special mercy versus just mercy?
Good, very good question. And we will unpack that, what that means. Thank you for that. Just hold it there. Great question. That gets unpacked in this verse.
Okay.
Okay?
Yes.
You're very intelligent, and you've unpacked one of the shining part of this verse. So let's move through it, and we'll answer that question. So anything else? Otherwise, I wanted to do this line by line because it's just so nice. Generally, when we do the Sanskrit, we'll just read the Sanskrit, kind of pass over as some kind of a ritual. But these are Krishna's words, and he's chosen his words very carefully. And to go through this and understand each sentence, it's like poetry. So the first sentence, I have it there. You can either open it in your book or you can look at it here. But you see this first line. So this, I'll just read the whole Sanskrit just so you can hear what it is. Tesham eva nukam partam aham agyanajam tamaham nashayam yatma bhavasto gyana dipena basvataha. So this first line, and we'll go through this line by line, take our time, ask any questions, give me your comments, because this is just so beautiful. Tesham, them, so who is them? Eva nukam partam, to show them special mercy. And them is, I don't know if I go backwards, if you can see this. Did that refresh to the previous verse? Yes, it did. So the previous verse is Bhajatam Priti Purvakam. So when Krishna says them, right? Here he also says the word Tesham, them. Who is them? Bhajatam, those who do bhajan or worship. Priti means love. And Purvakam means feelings, expression. So those who do worship or adoration, they're thoughtful, they're making offerings with love, full of feeling. So that is who Krishna is referring to in this verse when he says them. So anybody want to say anything about that? So the very first word is them, and he's saying, Bhajatam Priti Purvakam, those who have adoration with feeling, Priti Purvakam.
Is the I put a question in the chat. I don't know if that was the right spot, but I was saying.
Oh yeah, I see it.
Oh, you see it?
Beautiful. Yes.
Okay.
Like purvakam. Yes, exactly. Let's go back to that.
But not like a cat, like purr.
Purvakam. Pur. Yeah, see this U? Purvakam. So the Sanskrit is kind of complicated. It's not really in English. We don't really have these kind of sounds, but sometimes when you see a line over something that's a vowel, you can just hold it for a little bit longer and it gives you that same, a similar meaning in the Sanskrit pronunciation. So yes, purvakam. So I held it a little longer, purvakam. So you're correct. Good question. Okay. Anything else on this? So when Krishna says
Yeah, I just want to read because I feel like it's 10:8 through 10:11. So I just kind of want to contextualize a little bit. Can we just read through each of those verses?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. So again, we're studying the four main verses.
Chatur shloka.
Yes. And so just as a matter of respect, I'm going to say the Sanskrit because I know the Sanskrit, so I can say it quickly. Aham sarvasya prabhavo mata sarvam pravartate iti matva bhajante mam buddha bhava samanvata. I am the source of all spiritual and material worlds. And who's speaking? Who's
Krishna.
I? Krishna, exactly. I am the source of aham, right? I am the source of all spiritual and material worlds. Everything emanates from me. The wise who perfectly know this engage in my devotional service and worship me with all their hearts. And here again we have this bhajante, which means like worship. And this bhava samanvata means great attention. Okay, so let's go down to the next one. Any questions on that? Interrupt me if you have any. TS, you're full of good questions.
No questions at this time, but just wanted to say this is so cool. What this thing that you have, like the scrolling and then to see that's really neat.
Right, it's a good platform. And so if people do come in, now we have 0 views, but that's because we have no advertisement. Now, I've got a decent following on TikTok and a lot of people have asked about this. So I want to do this maybe 4 or 5 times before I put it out there, but eventually we probably would have some views and people asking questions. And so you can come back and you don't have to have your Gita and you can go through it and we can all go through it together. So I really like this platform. It was Gora that turned me onto this.
Okay. Yeah, it's awesome. Thank you for setting it up like this.
Yeah, thank you. It's for you. I'm your servant. So then we have 10:8, 9. Matchita makata prana bodhayanta parasparam katayantas chamam nityam tushanti cha ramanti cha, which means become pleased and joyful. So the thoughts of my pure devotees dwell in me. Means, what does that mean? If Krishna says the thoughts of my pure devotees dwell in me, what do you think that means?
That they all are one?
That, yes, that Krishna is thinking of his devotees. The thoughts of them are in him, in his heart. He's thinking of them. They're like in his heart. Like thoughts of my family are in me. So sometimes you have to kind of dig up this and,
like he's considering what his devotees are thinking, or he knows what we're thinking. He has their thoughts in mind within himself, meaning he's considering and thinking of others within himself.
Yeah, exactly. Their lives are fully devoted to my service, and they derive great satisfaction and bliss from always enlightening one another and conversing about me. How nice is that? Katayantas, or talking, Kata, like when you hear the word Krishna Kata, talking about me nityam, perpetually. And from talking about Krishna perpetually, they get tushanti cha, romanti cha. They're happy and joyful. Isn't that nice? Krishna thinks about his pure devotees because his pure devotees, we don't have to say pure, his devotees think about him, they speak about him all the time, and they're full of joy and bliss. Isn't that a beautiful verse?
I think that beginning, it is beautiful. That beginning part of machitta, right? Their minds fully engaged in me. It seems as though it's like we should have our minds fully engaged in him, but I also can see how it would mean that he's engaged in our thoughts. Like, they say that the universe already knows what you're thinking. The universe already knows what your thoughts and desires are. So it's tricky because I've always seen this as, and not tricky in a bad way, but I've always approached this verse as my mind should be engaged in Krishna all the time, right? My mind fully dwelling in that place of awareness. But that's the first time I've heard it said that it could also mean that Krishna is engaged in our thoughts. Our thoughts dwell within him, and this sort of idea of consideration, reciprocity with the Supreme Being.
Yes. So that's kind of the beauty of this, is that this Sanskrit is poetry. And imagine if I took poetry in a different language. Like isn't your native language something else, Dharma? Don't you speak Portuguese or something like that?
Yeah, I do.
So,
although my native language is English, but yes, some things just don't translate.
Right? Imagine if you read some beautiful poetry in a different language and you were like, wow, that's so nice. And then I said, okay, let's take each word and put it into a dictionary and make it into English. It doesn't translate, right? And so it's the same thing.
Yeah.
Like, people can't understand that sometimes when you read the Sanskrit, the English doesn't match up word for word because the translator understands the meaning behind it and is trying to portray that in the language. So this machitta literally means thinking of me. But here, Prabhupada is referring it to the thoughts of the devotees are in me, Krishna.
Yeah, I see that here. My Gita has a different translation, but this one, the way it's phrased there, presents a different perspective that I think, it's just, I've never seen it presented this way, and I'm just really appreciative of the insight.
Yeah. It's nice, right?
And something that we were pondering on was, the concept of thoughts being things, thoughts as in energy. It's, to me, when I'm looking at this, it's not necessarily like the thoughts themselves dwell inside of Krishna, but more so the energies of the devotees within him, like bringing that into the oneness, like moving that energy through himself versus just it being like a literal thought.
Okay, I can see that too. That's a different perspective, and I can appreciate that. Yes. Anything else on this, or should we go to the next one?
We could go forward.
Okay. So then the verse before the verse we're studying, Tesham Satatam Yuktanam, and then this beautiful line, Bhajatam Priti Purvakam, Dadami Buddhi Yogam Tam, Yenamam Upayanti Te. To those who are constantly devoted to serving me with love, I give them the understanding by which they can come to me. Isn't that nice? Now, this translation, in my perspective, doesn't really hit the point as much as if you dig into what it means, because bhajatam doesn't necessarily only mean worship, like I'm going to ring bells and do a ritual. It's like a budge means like something that you would do with your heart, like it also can mean like like sometimes kirtan, like when you sit down you play the harmonium with a drum and you sing a song, that's also called budge or bhajan. So it's more of a heartfelt rendering of worship than just a ritual. So think of this as heartfelt rendering of worship. Priti literally means love. And purvakam means like feelings, like sweet feelings. So this is a heartfelt rendering with love and sweet feelings. Isn't that nice? I was, do I still have that book here? No, I don't have it here. Go ahead.
So I always thought of bhajans as like a more personal, intimate, reverent form of kirtan, right? It's not like the mood is different, and you do bhajans to really feel the bhav, right? To feel the and to me, bhav is like the essence of bhakti. It is that like pure, right? So bhajan and bhav, they're sharing the same root word? Is that a connection there? Like bhav is that pure love, right? Of just that heartfelt, open, unconditional love of the heart that is so beyond our human understanding sometimes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Exactly what you're saying. And so from it, look at this next line. So let's just unpack exactly what you said. Unconditional love, like worship or adoration from the heart, done with love, priti, and ecstatic feelings. And then the next line, Krishna says, Dadami, I give buddhi, intelligence, yogam, buddhi yogam, a connection with their intelligence. So through that loving worship, I give them a connection with me, yogam, through intelligence. And that's where it says here, I give them the understanding by which they can come to me. Isn't that nice? So it's not saying study Sanskrit and say all the words with pronunciation, sit with your back straight and say, tesham satatam yuktanam. He's saying because of the love in your heart, I give you the intelligence by which you can understand me. Like every one of these four
It's really
verses is packed full of love.
What would be the opposite?
Think what? Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I'd say what is the other option of to serve from love? It's like serving from love would be the only way. Is there another way to serve?
Yes. Yeah. So you can serve. So there's a lot of different ways that you can serve God. One of them is karma kanda, which means I'm giving, but I want something in return. For example, I have a housekeeper. If I didn't pay her, she would not clean my house. But I appreciate her service for sure. But I pay her. So there's that service where you are offering your service to Krishna and he appreciates it, but you want something in return. Like you wouldn't do it otherwise. And that's called karma kanda. So then there's mixed, which is called karma Mishra bhakti. And that is you're doing it with love, but you kind of want something in return. Not completely, not like I give you this, I want it back, tenfold, but I'm doing things and I want something in return. And so that's mixed. And then there's pure bhakti, which is just pure, like you can be in the worst state of your life, but you serve God with love without any condition for anything in return. And that's
It's
pure
kind of
bhakti.
like a parent and a child. Like a parent will
Yeah.
love their child unconditionally and serve unconditionally, even,
Yes.
but a child will love their parent, they'll serve their parent because their parent told them so. Or we can serve out of ego sometimes, which is like,
Yeah.
and which I think refers back to the original the other verses, is like that intention of the heart. And sometimes it's tricky because it's mixed. Like there is that pure love, but there's also, we're mixed in with the gunas and all of our humanness. And we don't want to look at that side. We just want to look at, but I'm coming with love. Yes, but bringing all these other things with it. And the goal of these verses is to remind us to work towards that purity in regards to Krishna, specifically in regards to Krishna, loving Krishna purely.
Yeah.
Does Krishna look down upon those who serve seeking to get? Because then it would be like based upon conditions.
No. So Krishna is equal to all, equal to everyone. He's equal to the full materialist out to gain only for self, and to the devotees, equal to all. So he doesn't look down on anybody ever. But because of the devotees' love for him, he is moved in loving reciprocation. So he looks more favorably on those who are doing it out of love, but that doesn't mean he's looking down at the other ones, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, that does.
Okay.
It's like, you love all your friends, but you have some friends who just, the exchanges that you guys have come from a different place of heart-centeredness.
Yeah.
And so it's not that that reciprocity cultivates a really special bond, as opposed to like your friends that maybe don't make more of the effort to reciprocate and do things. And so it isn't as an intimate bond. And so it's not that you see them less or love them less. It's just there's a specialness to this more reciprocal thing that isn't full of ego stuff.
I have 3 kids, 2 teenage boys and a 9-year-old daughter. And my 9-year-old daughter is very affectionate. She always wants to sit in my lap and hug me and say, "I love you, Daddy." She makes pictures of us holding hands and says, "I love you, Daddy." I do not love her any more than my other children. But they don't give me the same affection. And so I have just that feeling of love for my daughter because of that reciprocation that I get from her, that attention of being, a daddy's girl. And I don't think, well, I love her more than them because she's nicer to me. Does that make sense?
Yeah. These are really like bringing it in. These are good examples.
Okay, cool. Okay, so if anything else, then we'll go to the verse that we're studying, since we only got to one word. So then, with all that being said,
can I just really quickly, I just want to say, I've also asked these very same questions. So you're asking really great questions. That means you're very much contemplating what these things are saying and you're taking them to heart. And so I want you to hopefully not have any negative energy around asking questions, because we all want to know, like, wait, does that mean God loves somebody more than God loves me? And so they're good questions, and I'm glad that you're asking them. I've asked them as well.
Yeah, good questions. Very good. Okay, so now to the verse. So now, thank you, Dharma, for having us read those. So now when we go to this first word and it says Tesham, which means them, now we know who Krishna's talking about, right? Those who are worshiping with love, those who are katayantam nicham. No, what is the verse? Hold on, I'm going to look this up. So I have it here. What did we say that was speaking? Sorry. I'm only doing this because we don't have anybody on live. This verse where we said katayantas chanmam nityam, or those who are speaking constantly, right? So with love, speaking constantly, worshiping, they have their heart, they have loving feelings. That's what Krishna says, tesham. And so tesham eva nukam partam, to show them special mercy. And that is that thing that I was saying, where there's that, my daughter, she's definitely a daddy's girl. She's always sitting in my lap, telling me she loves me, drawing pictures and climbing on my neck. I don't love her any more than my other kids, but there's that extra bit, right? That feeling. And so that's to show special mercy.
It's a different, it's just a different quality. It's a different quality of loving exchange. And so it makes it a unique experience. And it doesn't mean it's more or less. It just has a different mood to it. And that mood happens to be the mood that when we're in, it's the only thing that can bind Krishna to us. So we have that reciprocal love. So it's just a different quality. I was going to give this example too, because Gora used this with me as well when I had these same questions, and I have 2 kids. And so he's like, do you love one more than the other? I said, of course not. He goes, but I bet you have a different relationship with each of them. Which relationship do you find more pleasing to the heart?
Yeah.
It just feels different and special. And you know, it's hard to admit as a parent, but it definitely has to do with the interaction between the reciprocity that's happening between the beings when they're able to meet in this middle place and meet each other. When it's just lopsided, there's a different quality to the relationship.
Yeah, right.
That's it.
Can I make a comment? Can you guys hear me?
Of course, yes.
My internet and phone just been acting funny, so I've been going in and out. But I think too, on the flip side of this, is the idea that there are different ways to approach Krishna, and that difference and that distinction is important, because there are those who just kind of, in a sense, do the basic. They just they just do the basic, or they approach with expectations and wants and desires, versus those who would be considered pure as those who do the extra, do more. They're the quality of the child that wants to sit on your lap, wants to hug you, wants to tell you I love you, doesn't really want anything from you except to be close to you, near you, always thinking about you, always just showing you that extra attention and love, versus the way that we're kind of talking about it as Krishna being the parent, trying to say, hey, everything is, I love you all the same, but there's just that extra special something about this one, from the child perspective, to use that analogy. Just like, okay, why is it that these different children who have the same parent are acting and showing different kinds of devotion or love to their parent?
Yeah.
I think that can be said for people who do more than the basics. There can be people who are diving deep into scripture and doing kirtan and meditating all the time, but still be clinging to expectation and not doing it from a pure place. And really it comes down to the essence of like where our heart is, which was in that original verse we started. I think it was verse 8, like where the heart is. Yeah.
Yeah, nice.
But yes, to your point, Ed, it is about different ways that we can approach Krishna, and he's just kind of like giving us a hack here. He's like, you want to get extra special close to me? Here's a little hack.
Yeah.
Right, because or else there would be no point in saying pure devotee or my dear friend or the dearest friend to me, like he says in other verses.
Yeah.
He
Yeah, he's
delineates the difference, yes.
yeah,
And
he's
not in a judgmental way of good or bad. It's just different.
yeah, he's going out of his way to be descriptive in what he means by devotion here. Like he's not saying bhakti yogis, bhakti yogis, bhakti yogis. He's saying, priti purvakam, those with love who have emotion. He's saying katayantam chamam nityam, those who actually talk about me all the time. Like he's not just saying the bhakti yogis, the group engaged in devotional service. He's being very specific, and those that are doing it with love, with heart, their life is dedicated to me. They're always speaking amongst each other about me. That group is who I'm talking about. Though he loves all of them, but this one, they've got some little extra feeling in there for Krishna's heart. And so then this verse says, so Tesham Eva Nukam Partam, showing them, all those in the last three verses, special mercy. Aham Agyanajam. So this is like, so aham means I. So put a little comma after I, and then do Agyanajam Tamaham. That means Agyana means ignorance, Jam means born from, and Tamaha means darkness. So I, comma, ignorance born from darkness, Nashayam Yatma, I destroy it. So I, ignorance born from darkness, destroy it. So I destroy ignorance, which is born from darkness, Atma Bhavasto, from within their hearts. So by engaging in love with Krishna and talking and this and that darkness which is in all of our hearts, that ignorance which is deep down in there, Krishna personally destroys it, removes it. And with what? Jnana, which means knowledge, Deepena, which means a lamp, Basvataha means like a bright, brilliant lamp. So with a bright, brilliant lamp of knowledge, Krishna destroys within our heart ignorance, which is born from darkness. How nice is that? How beautiful is that? It's like poetry. So there's darkness and it's destroyed by light. And the light is jnana, which destroys agyana, ignorance. Tamaha means darkness. And so he's using this context. With the bright, shining lamp of knowledge, I destroy darkness born of ignorance. What do y'all think about that one?
I think it's a really beautiful verse that gives me hope for when I'm doing my practices, but I also think that it can be oversimplified in the sense of like, if I just sit and chant, it's going to burn everything away, and I don't have to address how I'm showing up in the material world. I just have to sit and chant and chant and chant, and it's all going to just get magically fixed. And yeah. You know what I mean? Like, I love it. And it's nice to know that as I'm doing these things, it is helping me to see myself but then I still have to go out and interact with the world. And I can't just, I'm thinking of like teachers that I've had who do a lot of chanting. They do a lot of sadhana, and yet their behavior stays the same.
Sure.
And not that the chanting isn't working. I think that they're not,
Yeah. Well, it
Yeah.
has to be done
Anyways,
with
that's
love.
just my 2 cents. It's unimportant.
Yeah. No, it's important. What do you mean it's unimportant?
It was important to us because we actually relate to that in a different example. So not the chanting, but we get caught in this trap of, oh, if we just say X amount of positive affirmations every single day, then everything is going to be quote unquote fixed or great because we're saying, all these affirmations all the time. But there also has to be the energy behind it. We cannot just simply rely upon speaking of these affirmations and then everything changes. There's so much more to that. So we really appreciate that, what you said, because it brings us home in our own example.
Yeah. So here's a point. Let me scoot on back 2 verses. I understand exactly what you're saying, but I have a question. What makes anybody, do something with another creature with love? What makes that love? Means, could I actually meet a complete stranger that I've never talked to or I've ever seen before and engage in this at that moment in the same feelings that I have, let's say, with Priya, my girlfriend who lives with me? I can't, because I don't know them. They're a stranger to me. Though I'm doing the same activity, maybe having a coffee or sitting on a park bench. What would make the difference between Priya and the stranger?
I would challenge that a little bit. I think you can offer loving kindness to anyone you come across.
Of course, but do I have the same love?
I think he's asking how, but he's asking how. Like, what is it that makes us able to do that? That's what he asked. What is it that makes us able to share that love equally?
Yeah, if I sit down on a park bench with a complete stranger and we have a conversation, I may have loving feelings for them and care for them as a human. But if I do it with, let's say, my daughter or with Priya, my exchange with them is at a different space entirely. I have love for them, and the interaction is injected with that love. What's the difference between the complete stranger and my child and Priya?
Proximity.
Experience, trust, and faith.
Proximity.
Yes.
Proximity and intimacy.
Yes. Experience. You have experience.
And the experience that you've had with that person, that's been cultivated between that person, not just your I'm an experienced person at life. It's the direct experience you have with that person in an intimate relationship, or whatever proximity the relationship is with you.
Yes. So here Krishna says, Tu shanti cha ramanti cha. They are interacting with each other and having a blissful, joyful interaction experience. So Krishna, God, is a person, and we have an interaction with them, an experience with Krishna. And because of that interaction, then we have love, which develops over time. It's not just mechanical. It's not like, well, okay, I'm just going to give up my job and I'm going to sit and chant all the time now because of this verse. It's not mechanical. You can do that all day long. And without that experience, that reciprocal experience, you're not going to develop love. It's not going to happen.
Experience, yes, but something that came up for us was an example of swimming, whether depending on what part of the pool you get in, the shallow end, the deep end, or whether you're in salt water or fresh water. It also for us is coming up as you swim differently in the shallow end versus you would swim in the deep end. So it's about what you're getting into, that depth, the depth of the water being the relationship, the life force.
Sure. Yes. Your relationship, depending on what that is, but you develop it yourself. You make that choice on how you have a
Yeah.
relationship with the Supreme. That's up to you. So you could sit and chant hundreds of thousands of rounds with nothing, no response, nothing at all. Or with heart and meaning, sit down and chant one mantra. Krishna says that if you're fixed even at the hour of death, you can be fixed and go back to the spiritual world, or you can waste your whole life with no value. So it's that heart, and where does the heart come from? But that experience with Krishna interacting in your life, bringing Krishna in and creating an experience with Krishna. If you look at Arjuna asked Krishna, how do we experience you? Because in previous chapters, Krishna says, I think it's actually in the next chapter. Oh, no, it's in this chapter. Krishna says, Rasoham apsu kunteya, by drinking water and seeing me in the water. I am the light of the sun and the moon. So when you see the light, you think of Krishna. Or you see the moon, you think of Krishna. You think, it's this beautiful thing in the sky. This is Krishna's creation. You're bringing Krishna into your life. You have a child and you're holding and you're feeding your child and you think, look at this amazing creation. This is a brilliant and beautiful. This is a soul, and Krishna's in the heart. You're bringing Krishna in, you're creating an experience. And from it, you get, as Krishna says here, from your heart, experience with Krishna, light with a shining lamp of knowledge or experience, which breaks the ignorance. So it's bringing Krishna in and having a relationship with Krishna that makes it that the worship and everything that we do destroys the ignorance. It doesn't have to do with doing sadhana all day or ringing bells all day or chanting japa all day. It has to do with the heart. Yeah, I kind of went off on a tangent, but what's y'all's thoughts? What do you think, Max?
Yeah, we agree with that. And I know the water example just keeps coming back to us. Mm-hmm. It is what you're saying, like the heart, the consciousness behind it. You're in the shallow water. It doesn't really take much to swim, but you're in the depth, the very deep end. You have to put a lot more effort into that. And so for us, the effort is that consciousness, is that flow of energy and the amount in which you're focusing on it.
Okay. Nice revelation. Mm-hmm.
And so can I also too, like with that swimming analogy or example, it's not necessarily easier to swim in the shallow end. It's actually the reverse. The more comfortable you are, the lighter you are, the more you're calm, and you can actually swim easier in the deep end. This has been my experience once I learned how to swim, because my faith, my trust in that I don't need the ground beneath me. When I'm in the shallow end, I'm not really swimming. I can't really there's an element of the depth of the water that's missing in the shallow end that makes it more challenging to swim in the shallow end than it is in the deep end. Mm-hmm. If that makes sense, and I'm relating to it as, as I'm in the water myself, it's easier actually to swim in the ocean with the greatest depth than it is to try to swim and float and be comfortable and actually swim in the shallow end, because my feet are going to go down. I'm not going to be able to level out. But when I have that depth of faith that matches the depth of the water beneath me, I can just simply float in the water and be still.
That's gorgeous. The depth of faith. Oh my gosh, that is so gorgeous, Ed.
Nice, Ed. Ed's a poet. Max, you have something you want to throw in?
Yeah, it's along the same line and it's slightly oppositional, but I think you'll enjoy it anyways. If one is devoted to Krishna all their life, or if one finds Krishna in a moment, like a stranger on a park bench, they feel this connection and this bliss, is one experience better than the other?
Wait, say again?
Which is better, to be a devotee for 20 years or to feel the organic bliss in a moment, finding Krishna in a stranger on a park bench? Is one more valid than the other?
I don't think I can answer that question.
I
would say
think
they're not comparable.
we forget that the way that we experience an invisible love from Krishna is through our interactions with other people, because Krishna is in everybody. And so I don't think that one is better than the other. We just all have different ways in which we experience it. And sometimes that experience is just a moment to give us a taste, so that we can continue on to develop that in other areas of our lives. But you know, experience, I mean, why do we want to love Krishna so much? So that we can not share it with others? We want to treat everyone as if they're Krishna. We want to develop that love so that we treat everyone around us with that love, not just to be in some secret closet relationship with Krishna where just the two of you get to experience that yourselves.
Yeah.
If I'm understanding your question properly.
My question really was intended to be a softball to loft up for y'all to say no, that, you know, they're both just as good. And I was going to say, well, then can't we experience love, a deep connection with a stranger in the same way that we can with somebody that we've known for a longer period of time? So I am dwelling, and it's okay to move on.
I agree with you, Max.
you bring up.
I think I feel like it's to Jagai's point is, what is the source that allows us to have the capacity to love a stranger in the moment? Because we have an understanding of this deep love that we get from our source. Otherwise, if we don't have that connection with something, we're not able to then display that kind of connection with others. So I agree with you wholeheartedly. And Ed, I know I cut you off, so I'm putting the mic down.
I was just gonna say it's a great conversation to connect to the verses that I'm trying to think of them off the top of my head, but the verses have to do with equanimity and the way that we look at, you know, a friend, an enemy, a dog eater. That verse, those verses come to mind when it comes to what we're talking about right now. As far as, I mean, we're talking about a connection and experience with a stranger, and then people that we have experience and time and a life with and attachments to, versus someone that we don't necessarily have attachment to. And so that brings up that question in those verses for me, as to, like, one not necessarily, is not being a question of whether one is better than the other, but the pure bhakti sense of devotion, or the pure state of devotion, is that I could see this person who I don't know and this person who I've known all my life as equals in terms of how I am going to treat them in any given moment in time. And maybe Jagai can help me with the verses, because I can't pull them up or think about them.
I'm not sure.
That's all I know the verses you're referencing, and again, I agree with what you're saying. But what Jagai is getting at this point is there's a different standard, or not a standard, a different quality within that love, a different level of intimacy within that love that's coming from the same place. There's a different level of intimacy because of the established relationship of reciprocity. And so it's not that you can't love or have that same genuine love for a stranger. It's just the depth of that ability to move into such intimate spaces. It hasn't been cultivated. So it's not that one is better than the other. They're just different.
Yeah. One is better than the other. They're just different. Yeah, they're different. I mean, there would be nobody that I could sit next to and have a conversation with where I would have the same emotional experience than when I have with, let's say, if I sat with my mom, or if I sit with my daughter, or if I sit with Priya, or even if I sit with Dharma. I love Dharma. And so why is that? Why is there the difference? I may be completely Samadarshana, equal to all, but there's still, even Krishna saying it here. Krishna is the most Samadarshana, equal to all. He says that. But still he's saying, those who all this stuff, I give them a little special mercy. So even God has that in him, which means we have that in us because we are sparks of God. And that comes from this reciprocation, this reciprocal relationship between people of all kinds or whatever, but there's that reciprocation. And even here, Krishna says, Tushanticha Ramanticha, that just sitting and speaking to each other about me brings up joyful and beautiful feelings. And Krishna likes that. He likes to see and hear people talk about him.
So one more thing on this. Yes, totally agree with everyone's shares about them not being better or worse. But we definitely want to, I don't know if a test is the right word, but we definitely would say that there is this profoundness when, like what Max was talking about how, yes, you can meet a complete stranger and have this intensity with a stranger. And that is, in our experience, the profound, it's just this massive, profound, just glow in us where we have such a deep connection with a stranger who we literally just met. And this just happened yesterday. And it was just like fireworks within our system because we did not know this person. We were at a metaphysical shop and shopping for crystals. And it was like, we didn't want to leave the store because the connection was so deep with this person and everything that she was speaking about. And we were just like taking it all in. And so then it was like, wow, the fact that we don't have that connection, we don't have that history with her, but like seeing Godhead within her and having that depth, it was just, it blew our mind to the point of we didn't want to leave.
Okay. Cool. So we have different perspectives on this point for sure. Any other thoughts? I think let's do a little bit of the purport. The purport's kind of long, but I think it's just out of due respect. And then we can talk a little bit about that and then end our class, okay? So the purport, when Lord Chaitanya was in Benares promulgating the chanting of Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, thousands of people were following him. Prakashananda Saraswati, a very influential and learned scholar in Benares at that time, derided Lord Chaitanya for being a sentimentalist. Sometimes Mayavad philosophers criticize the devotees because they think that most of the devotees are in the darkness of ignorance and are philosophically naive sentimentalists. So this is a big point here. There's different conceptions of this philosophy, and there's one conception which is that we don't have a loving relationship with God. I'm not going to get into
Interesting.
that.
Well, I
Huh?
was going to make a point earlier, and I didn't. I was going to say that we get caught up in these words of like better, or that different denotes better or worse. They're just different.
Mhm.
And that this kind of love is a sentimental love. Like there's sentimentality that's there because there are these exchanges. And so it just
Mhm.
adds a different quality to the love. And seeing all the expressions of love as love, but recognizing that there are different qualities within that love.
Yeah.
And this bhakti is a sentimental love
Yeah.
that they're speaking of. And so sometimes you can meet a stranger, and I put in the chat, like maybe that moment, TS, was Krishna's special mercy of like allowing that profound moment to happen. Who knows? You know, maybe you have a connection in a past life that created that sentimentality. But the idea, the overarching idea, of course, there are always exceptions to the rule, but the overarching idea is you may look at your partner and a friend equally, but the quality of interaction or the depth of interaction will still be different amongst those relationships. And that's what it's saying here, is that they're just different kinds. And if we want that like real depth, then there's sentimentality involved.
Mhm. Yeah. Mhm.
Focusing back on
But so the
special
devotees are
mercy.
being criticized.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Finish.
Go
No,
ahead.
you.
No, I was done.
I was just saying that focusing back on special mercy also helped this click for me, because I thought to myself, well, I could accept that, you know, this person who I know intimately and deeply, I'll give them a little bit more leeway and special mercy because of the depth of that relationship. So I
Mhm.
might feel that deep connection instantaneously, but I might not be as patient or humble just because I don't know them quite in the same way. So
Mhm.
yeah, things have come from.
Okay, I'll read this last little bit here. And that's here. Actually, it is not a fact. There are very, very learned scholars who have put forward the philosophy of devotion. But even if a devotee does not take advantage of their literatures or of his spiritual master, if he or she or whoever is sincere in his devotional service, he is helped by Krishna himself within the heart. So the sincere devotee engaged in Krishna consciousness cannot be without knowledge. The only qualification is that one carry out devotional service in full Krishna consciousness. Now, so what this reminded me of is I've had this experience where you can meet somebody who is arguing hard through a very rational line that there is no God, God does not exist. And they come up with all sorts of philosophies and this thing, that thing, and sciences and this and that. And after hearing it, it all makes rational sense. But for me, it doesn't move me at all. Because in my life, I have experiences with Krishna. And those experiences reside within my heart. It's outside of rational thinking. And so that tie, which is within my heart, is what keeps me connected. And it doesn't have to do with knowledge. It has to do with experiences. And you can meet people who don't read so much. They don't study so much. They don't know very much at all. But they have such a strong heart connection with Krishna that nothing you could say to them, on the contrary, would move them at all. No matter how much science, books, this, that, nothing. And so that's what Krishna is saying here, that connection brings within the heart the knowledge. It removes that ignorance, that like blind, like darkness. And it's all because of love. What's y'all's
Yeah,
thoughts on
that's a really great point. I really appreciate that.
Well, anybody want to throw in before we end our day? Last comments? Dharma, what do you think? What's your concluding comment? How about each person throwing a concluding comment? I just gave mine.
Our concluding comment. Oh, Dharma's first?
Go. Nope, go for it. I'm not ready.
Okay. First of all, the host, how do you pronounce your name?
Jagai Nitai.
Jagai Nitai. Okay.
You can just call me Jagai.
Jagai.
Jagai's
Okay. So this was just so well put together. This the platform, just your tone and your guidance today, and yeah, it's really on point. And just wanted to say much gratitude for you, and that comes from a special place because we were really nervous about joining with a new teacher that we hadn't worked with before.
Oh,
and
thank you.
Almost like wasn't going to come because it was just kind of taking over our system as far as like the fear of like we don't really know you aside from like a few kirtans and stuff. So just thank you for how you show up today. It was great.
You. I appreciate that. I do. Thank you. I appreciate your questions and your input. You're a bright person.
Yes, we're glad to have you all here. My takeaway from all of this is, to the degree of my ability to reciprocate is the depth of love that I'll be able to experience. And so if I really want to feel deep love and experience deep love, that really requires reciprocity between me and my creator, but also practicing it between myself and the other beings who embody that spark of divinity within them. And I can experience all kinds of love, but if I really want deep, meaningful, sentimental love, then there has to be reciprocity, not just from me, but from the other, because Krishna also gives, right? So there has that deep love comes from two beings being reciprocal toward one another, and that's what gives it the depth. And so practicing that with Krishna so that I'm able to practice that with others.
Nice. Nice. Max, you want to throw in?
Nothing for me at the moment.
Okay. Ed, any last words before we wrap it up? Is Ed still there? We lose him.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, now we can.
Okay. I just enjoyed the verse that we read, and for me, if I think the thing that it's that interaction, that conversation, that constant like talking about Krishna and Krishna's pastimes, and that those things are part of that shining lamp of knowledge that purifies the heart. And as a person that is seeking and working to cleanse the heart of past traumas and conditioning, that this verse gives me that kind of comfort, or not comfort, but just guidance and direction to just continue chanting, continue doing kirtan, continue doing the things that that just get in there and work those things out. That darkness, every syllable of the mantra is like piercing a small needle hole in the darkness, and eventually with enough of it, the light just starts to break through and press through and brush through and shine through very, very brightly into all the other areas of my life as well. So I appreciate and thank you for this platform, and echo what Team Satori commented as well. I wasn't, apprehensive or anything. I was not going to show up, but I appreciate the whole setup and the way that we all brought it together.
Nice. Thank you. Well, I'm definitely taking opinions and comments. I can send the link out. You can listen and watch it for it later. But in a few more times of this, I don't know, maybe you should do it 3-4 more times, then see how we feel. And then I'll send it out to the masses and see what kind of traction we get. I kind of think nobody's going to come watch this, but at least I like the platform.
And what I learned too, Jagai, is that if you don't let a person in the show on the show, then you could be backstage just listening, and only the host can see you, because that's what it said when I had to log back in. It said you are backstage, only the host can see you. So that's just something for in the future, if anyone just wants to like I don't want to participate, I just want to hang out backstage and listen.
Well, they can go on YouTube. I mean, if you go on my channel right now, it's live. Like if I go to YouTube, and they can watch it live.
Yeah, and I couldn't text any comments from my phone. I don't know if that's just because it's my phone, but I wasn't able to send any comments.
Now they could leave comments. They could do whatever they want. Yeah, I don't know about from the phone, but you can see it's like my screen here. It's like the mirror. It's me showing myself, showing myself, showing myself, showing myself. So people can go and watch it. They can comment. Gora, Dharma's going to leave. Okay, let's just end there. Okay. Vanchakalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavibhyo Namo Namaha. Thank you, Prabhus. Haribol. Have a beautiful week. Haribol.